Phil Steele Plus tour with selections for September the 17th. Up for you today, I've got 8 free selections. Last week we gave you 10 free selections. Those selections went 7 and 3. So hopefully we have another nice big winning week. Of course, the purpose of this, I want everybody that subscribes to Inside the Press Box gets Phil Steele Plus for free. I know many of you subscribe to Phil Steele Plus. I want to make sure you get the most out of it. This is what I use. It's my personal handicapping tool. It's got everything I need, all at my fingertips on every game, FBS, FCS, NFL. So I want to show you how to use it, but I also want to give you some free plays. And like I said, nice 7 and 3 week last week. All right, let's start off with Louisiana Tech against SMU and show you a couple of features here. First of all, we put SMU here on the left because they're the visitor. I put Louisiana Tech on the right because they're the home team. Let's take a look at the series history. When you click on the thing down, or click on the name down here, pops up the series history. We actually see that Louisiana Tech has won the last 3 games, 41-6, 41-10, 51-10. Now, granted, the last one was 2017. SMU is a different team, but I like the fact that we've got a little bit of history going with us on this game. Now let's take a look at something that I like a lot, and that's the box scores. And first of all, collegepressbox.com puts up these box scores every night. I rely on them because I go through the play-by-play of every single game that's played this weekend, each weekend. The first week there was 87 games, for crying out loud, involving FBS teams. Then it was 82 or 84 last week. This week there are 72 games. But I need to go through the play-by-play. And going through the play-by-play of the SMU North Texas game, a couple things that stuck out to me. First of all, if we take a look at the first half of this game, at one point, North Texas led this game 6-0, but they had a 228 to 87-yard edge. Going through the play-by-play, you could see that for North Texas, let's go up here to them, they settle for a field goal and settle for a field goal here. Each of those field goals, this is what I actually do, go through the play-by-play here. Here's your first quarter. We see that North Texas settles for a 19-yard field goal after a 1st and goal at the 5. That's disappointing. Then here they have a 1st and goal at the 9. And once again, they settle for a 22-yard field goal. So 6 points when they could have had 14. They're in control of the game all the way to here. And then with 4:31 left in the half, SMU gets a 62-yard TD pass, and all of a sudden they have the lead, 7-6, despite the fact North Texas just dominated the first half. Like I said, at this point, when they got the 62-yard touchdown, North Texas had a 228 to 87-yard edge. And then we look at the second half, and it was a little bit of a bad beat for North Texas. Here it's a game, it's 21-12. They're plus 22.5. So you feel pretty good, especially the way the game's been played. North Texas gets down to the 16-yard line, and they're intercepted in the end zone for a touchback. That hurts. SMU drives for a touchdown. Still not covering. It's 28-12. North Texas comes down to the SMU 14-yard line. They go for it on 4th and 1. They get stopped. What happens on the next play? Bentley rips off an 85-yard touchdown run, and SMU has a miracle cover, 35-22, minus 22.5. They're up by a half point in this game. The final drive for North Texas did get to the SMU 19-yard line, incomplete, and SMU escapes. So North Texas played a really good game, deserved to cover last week against SMU. Now, SMU's a team that generally struggles as an away favorite. They're just 3-7 as an away favorite. Let's take a look here. They only beat Texas State 31-24 last year. They needed overtime to get past Tulane, 37-34 last year. And Louisiana Tech's a very good dog. Holtz is 19-13-1 as a dog. And remember, go back to this Mississippi game. Got the box score in here. And you'll notice on some of these pages that the boxes aren't all completely updated. That's just because we're so overwhelmed with the games right now. But they'll be all updated probably by the time you see this video. But when we take a look at Louisiana Tech against Mississippi State here, 35-34. Louisiana Tech led this thing in the fourth quarter, 34-14. And that's at Mississippi State, a pretty good team. Now, last week they were in a letdown spot, and I see the score Once again, the play-by-play is not up there yet, but they did lead this game by like 10. Southeast Louisiana got a late score to pull within 3. So it was a letdown spot last week for them. I think we'll see them play to their full potential. Scrappy underdog, poor favorite. SMU off a very misleading win last week. I'm going to go with Louisiana Tech plus 12.5 over SMU. That's Louisiana Tech plus 12.5 over SMU. All right, let's go to the next game, and we're going to take a look at Baylor and Kansas. Baylor is the visitor, so I'm going to put them on the left. Kansas is the home team, so I'm going to put them on the right. And we bring it down here. Now, Baylor is a 17.5-point favorite, and frankly, I was impressed with Kansas in this game against Coastal Carolina. Once again, the box score is not updated, but middle of the third quarter, that was a good game. Kansas was playing Coastal Carolina tough. They ended up losing by 27. But this is just a series domination play. And when I talk series domination, let me show you what I'm talking about. First of all, you can see Baylor playing pretty well this year. They're at a 98.3 average game grade. They just beat Texas Southern 66-7. Gary Bohannon, let's go take a look at his individual player stats. If you click up here, you see the individual player stats for each team. Gary Bohannon, 15-24 for 148, but last week 17-23 for 247 with 3 touchdowns. Also ran for 27 yards last week. So I like the fact he's getting more comfortable in the offense. Tyquan Thornton, 103 yards receiving last week. Look, we'll keep your eyes on him. And then look at Abram Smith here. He's rushed for 100 yards in each of the first 2 games. Tristan Ebner has rushed for 100 yards plus in each of the first 2 games. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't know that fact until I just saw that right here. That's the beautiful thing about Phil Steele Plus. It really takes you completely in depth on every game. So look at this. They've had 200-yard rushers in each of their first 2 games. So that's impressive. Now, here's the most impressive thing. Let's click on Kansas, and we want to see the series history. All right, here's how the series history works. If it's green here, that means they won the game. Okay, Baylor's beaten Kansas 11 straight times. That's not a big surprise. They're a 17.5-point favorite. But look at this. They have covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row. If it's green out here, that means they covered the game. If it's red, that means they did not cover. So you see, they won the game here. That's why it's green, but they didn't cover. That's why this is red. Also, look at the amount of unders here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unders in the last 6 games. That's interesting. The home team, well, I mean, naturally, there's no sense looking over here because you see Baylor covers every single time. In the last 9 games, they're not 9-0, not just 9-0. But if you add these up, these scores, the average score is 49-10. That's 49-10. And last week, if we go back to this Baylor game, look at the halftime. 42-0 with a 458 to 50-yard edge. Now, granted, it's Texas Southern, but this is a much better Baylor team. It's a Baylor team that's in the second year of their head coach, Dave Aranda, and that means huge improvement. Last year, Aranda didn't have spring, didn't have time to work the team in, got the first game postponed, and yet they still beat Kansas 47-14 last year. So it's a thing where they're in great shape, and meanwhile, Kansas has a new head coach, one who took over after spring practice. They've got a lot of turmoil they're going through. Baylor needs a victory. I like Baylor minus the 17.5. And this is a series history play. Once again, when you click here, 9 in a row, 9-0 against the spread in the series, average win 49-10. Let's take a look at a couple other games. And we're going to take a look at, how about Fresno State and UCLA? Fresno State's the visitor, so we're going to line them up, put them on the left. Here they go. And UCLA's the home team. UCLA's been impressive. And yes, I liked LSU to beat UCLA in their last game, and I was wrong. UCLA was very impressive in that game, and they beat Hawaii 44-10. Now, if you go back and look at the Hawaii game, they did have 2 punt things happen. Hawaii's punter went to a knee, fielding the punt. The punt actually went to the UCLA 10, but they spotted it back at the Hawaii 15. UCLA got a quick touchdown. UCLA also blocked a punt for a touchdown in the game against Hawaii, but still an impressive game, and the LSU game is impressive. They're playing to an average game grade of 114.9. Let me explain the average game grades, because this is very important to me as well. They don't just look at the score of the game. They take a look at the score of the game, the opponent, where the game was played, The rush yards, the pass yards, the rush defense, the pass defense, all of that is in the stats. So if you win a game 45-0 against a Division II team, it's a very low average game grade, especially if you only had a 100-yard edge. Meanwhile, if you come close against a big-time power, you have a better grade. But here's the thing when we look at Fresno State. As impressive as UCLA has been, 114.9 average game grade, 12th best in the country, Fresno is playing to 112 average game grade. Remember, they went into Oregon, and when they played Oregon, they led this thing in the fourth quarter, 24-21. They had a 23-20 first down edge at Oregon. They had a 373 to 358-yard edge at Oregon. Beating Connecticut was nice, but look at this. They lose to Oregon by 7. They beat Connecticut 45-0. They actually had a better average game grade against Oregon because they outgained the Ducks on the road and only lost by 7 than they did beating Connecticut 45-0. That's the beautiful thing about the average game grade. And here's the other beautiful thing. It has no preconceived notion of how the team was at the start of the year. In other words, it doesn't matter what Fresno was rated at the start of the year. All that matters is what is their opponent rated and what did they do against them, and that's the average game grade. So as you see, UCLA only 2.5 points better. They're laying 11.5. Now factor in the home edge, 5.5 points better, but that's still a nice margin. Let's click on the series history here. And if we take a look at UCLA against Fresno State, UCLA's lost the last 3 against Fresno. Now, granted, some of its older history, 2003, 2008. But still, this UCLA, this is Fresno State. They've lost their last 3, including 2018 when they lost 38-14, and that would be under Chip Kelly. So they got that going for them. Fresno is 8-2 against the spread as an away dog. Check out your logs in your magazine. Chip Kelly is 3-6 as a home favorite for UCLA. Check out your logs in the magazine. And finally, UCLA's ranked this week for the first time since 2017. Teams that are ranked for the first time in over 3 years are a 64% play against that team. In other words, they can't handle the rankings. Now, I know UCLA's been ranked for 2 weeks, but they haven't played a game ranked in over 4 years. So this is the first game they're playing ranked. They're laying 11.5. We've got all these factors going for us. I'm taking Fresno State plus 11.5 over UCLA. Let's take a look at an interesting matchup here. Army against Connecticut. Now, nobody's going to watch this game, right? I mean, Connecticut is struggling, and Connecticut is on the road. So we're going to put Connecticut on the left, and we are going to put Army on the right. And let's take a look at this game, this matchup. Pull this over here a little bit so we can see this. Now, we all know about Connecticut. They are struggling. Randy Edsall came into the year, and Todd's got the coach, Randy Edsall, up here. He'll get that corrected. He'll put the interim head coach up there by the time you see this video. But they lost to Fresno State 45-0. They lose to Holy Cross at home 38-28 and got outgained by 101 yards. And they get buried by Purdue 49-0. So they're in bad shape. They have an interim head coach. They're sort of slogging through the season. What's the last thing you want to do when you're in that kind of condition? Take on a disciplined team like Army. Army's very disciplined. They run the football every play. They want to gain 4 or 5 yards every play. They're doing a good job. They're averaging 4.5 yards per game on the ground. They went into Georgia State and just manhandled them, 43-10. It was 27-7 at the half. They've got the defense. Connecticut's not going to be able to run, which means Connecticut started the season. Let's take a look at their quarterbacks. They started the season with Zergatis at QB. He had 12 of 24, 17 of 41. Replaced him with Krajewski, and he had 14 of 25 for 99 against Purdue. But they're struggling at quarterback. Kevin Mensah, who was a 1,000-yard rusher, close to a 1,000-yard rusher 1 year, is averaging 2.7 yards per carry going against this defense. Now, the beautiful thing about the Phil Steele Plus is it shows you the green and red. You can see Army runs the ball well, stops the run well. Connecticut doesn't run the ball well, doesn't stop the run well, and gives up 71% completions. So you've got this type of team going against a disciplined team. You know, Connecticut is just, when they play service academies, how about 0-5? Let's take a look at the last time they played a service academy, a disciplined team. Navy, right here, 56-10. They got outgained 573-313. They got outrushed 408 to 108. 56 to 10. They were manhandled by Navy in that game. And it just got worse in the third and fourth quarter. 14 points here, 14 points there. They're not going to stop running. Army's not going to stop running their offense. They'll score late if they have to. And so you've got a team that I think Connecticut probably gets shut out here. Again, they've been shut out twice. Both FBS foes shut them out. Army's got a prideful defense, one that gave up some late scores to Western Kentucky last week. It was 21-14 at the half. I think they led 35-14. But that was with a solid pass attack, as I pointed out last week. Western has a very good pass attack. Connecticut, not so much. They're hitting 46%. They've got 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and they're averaging 115 yards per game. So Army's taking on a team they can shut down. Connecticut's defense, they just had one of their top defensive players hit the portal. And the last thing you want with a team that's scrambling to find an identity is to play a team like Army. So I know Army's laying 34.5. Let's look at the average game grades. Army's playing to 109.5. Connecticut's playing to a 60. That would say that Army wins this game by 42.6. I like the situation. Connecticut is 2-10 against the spread as an away dog the last 4 years. Go check your magazine. Look at the logs. Look under away dog. Last 4 years, you'll see all the losses for Connecticut. Add it up. I like Army minus the 34.5 over Connecticut. All right. Let's take a look at Central Michigan, LSU. Central Michigan from the MAC. So we're just going to click on them, put them on the left. They are the visitor. We're going to put LSU on the right. They are the home team. And LSU had that disappointing game against UCLA. And then last week they beat McNeese. They were taking on Ed Orgeron's son, who was the quarterback. Gave up a late score. It was 34-0. McNeese got a late touchdown pass. Ed Orgeron's son got one to make it 34-7. So they pretty much dominated that game, but they only played to an 81.3 average game grade. They were supposed to win big, and they did not cover. Central's played well. They went into Missouri. Look at this. They had a 475 to 468 yard edge. And once again, this shows you, here's Central losing by 10 with an average game grade of 101. Here's LSU playing UCLA and losing by 11, and they're only slightly better. In fact, they beat McNeese State by 27. That was only an 81 game grade. This is a 101. They beat Robert Morris 45-0. We don't have the stats up on that, but here's the overall stats for the game. 28 first downs to 3. Who's the quarterback for Central Michigan? It's Jacob Sermon. He's a highly touted quarterback from Washington. I transferred in here. I think that's a big upgrade. Let's take a look and see how they've been doing overall here. Sermon only threw for 110 yards against Robert Morris. What does that tell you? It means that Daniel Richardson got a lot of mop-up duty. The game was a blowout. He'll probably have more of a game like he had here against Missouri, where he threw for 295 yards against an SEC school, and Nichols ran for 135. And then here, once again, only 79 last week, but it was a blowout. So they got Stepney sometime. They got Luke sometime. Pimpleton ran the ball 4 times for 58 yards. He's a wide receiver. So that's Central Michigan. You look at the overall average game grade, 96.1, 94. That's saying Central's actually playing at a higher level than LSU. And Central Michigan's a 19.5-point dog. And here's a couple factors. Open up your magazine. Go take a look at the logs. You'll see that Central Michigan is 19-8 against the spread as an away dog. Ed Orgeron 12-12 as a home favorite. So we got that going for us. We also have the fact that LSU has got Mississippi State on deck. Does that mean anything to LSU? Oh, look at this opening game last year. Mississippi State lit them up for 632 yards, 44 points. You think they're not sneaking in a little extra work on the Mike Leach offense here? Because Mississippi State destroyed them. A legitimate revenge game on deck. You're a 19.5-point favorite with an average home favorite against a very good away dog that already played Missouri tough. They've got a good quarterback. They've got a good running back. And they also have some dangerous receivers. And the Central Michigan defense this year did allow Missouri 468 yards, which is 70 above their season average. We'll get more into these as the season goes on. Right now, it's still a little early to compare season averages. But add it all up. I like Central Michigan, plus 19.5. And I love this game grade. 96.1, 94.1, and you have a 19.5-point dog with a better average game grade. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's get a couple more. That's 1, 2. We've touched on 5. We only got 3 more to go. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's show you what the NFL is about. We have all these things updated for the NFL. The NFL free plays got off to a nice 1-0 start with Carolina last week over the New York Jets. I told you I think Sam Darnold going to have a better year than Zach Wilson of the Jets. We'll see how that plays out. I believe it was 16-0 at the half. Let's see if we got that updated yet. Yeah, 16-0 at the half. Carolina had a 272 to 82-yard edge and ended up winning 19-14. Today we're going to take a look at Buffalo against Miami. So we go to our team pages. We're going to put Buffalo on the left. They're the visitor. And we're going to put Miami on the right because they're a home team. And what happened last week with these two teams, probably the wrong team won both games. The Buffalo Bills, look at this. They led 10-0 at the half with a 189 to 53-yard edge. The Bills had a 371 to 252-yard edge. They lost the game by 7. So here's a team. Oh, and one thing I want to point out, the one flaw I do have with our NFL things is the average game grades. They're all too close. All the game grades come up too close to each other. We'll eventually get that fixed. We have to figure out the right formula to get those things working right. So they're not the best to look at the game grades. But what you can do is look at the fact the Buffalo Bills outgained Pittsburgh by 119 yards last week and lost the game. Let's take a look at Miami. And with Miami, they were outgained by 134 yards, 393 to 259, and yet they won the game. And if you look at the box right at the end of the game, the New England Patriots, I don't know if you watched the game or not, but at the end of the game, here's the Patriots. They are down to a 1st down and 10 at the Miami 11. They are going to get the win, right? Fumble at the 2-yard line, and Miami runs out the clock. So it would have been the correct score, a New England victory with this kind of stat, 393 to 259. You win those games. So we have a team off a misleading loss that's 0-1 in their division and need a win. I mean, Buffalo's expected to win this division against the Miami team that's off a misleading win. Now, let's go take a look at the series history on this one, Buffalo and Miami. You wonder, can Buffalo win in the heat of Miami? Well, here's your answer. At Miami, win. In fact, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Since 2017, the Buffalo Bills are 7-1 against Miami. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2-1 against the spread. So they match up well. You got the series history. You've got the better team off a loss where they actually outgained their opponent by 119 yards, and Miami is off a win where they were outgained by 134 yards. So add it all up. I got your NFL play this week. It's Buffalo -3 with the series history, with all that other stuff going for them, -3 against Miami on the road. That's your NFL play. And all this stuff, if you look at the NFL, it goes all the way down here. You can go all the way back to getting red and green and series history. In fact, individual player stats, if you're a fantasy football player, you can go back. Let's take a look at last year's, 2020's individual game stats. There you go. That's every player, every game. You can see how they did. These are invaluable, and it's at your fingertips for every game. All you have to do is click on individual player stats at the top. We can see how they're doing this year. They'll get updated. This year's isn't updated yet. He'll have them updated probably by the time you see this. But there's your stats right there from game 1, so you don't need to go back and see the individual ones. But if you do want to see the individual ones for the entire year, there it is. You can see Josh Allen, how he did in every single game. It's all at your fingertips. So that's all available on the NFL each week, and there's your free NFL play. All right, we got 2 more games to look at. Let's go ahead and take a look over here. By the way, if you want to get Phil Steele Plus, just go to the homepage here. Go to the store, and when you go to the store, Phil Steele Plus for the year is just $69. The FCS version is $29. So $69 gets you the NFL, FBS, FCS, all the way through the Super Bowl. So we're talking September, October, November, December, January. Was that into February? That's $10 a month, guys. A little over $10 a month. And you have this at your fingertips all season. If you just want the FCS, it's $29 for the season. And I'll explain more on the FCS in a minute. Let's get to your final FBS versus FBS game. And we're going to take a look at UMass against Eastern Michigan. Now, UMass is the home team in this one, so we're going to put them on the right. And Eastern Michigan is the visitor. We're going to put them on the left. I had a nice video I did for the Eastern Michigan finish last week. Eastern Michigan at the end of the game against Wisconsin. Keep in mind, it's 27 or 28. No, the halftime's not up there. So the final score was 34-7. It's 27-7. Eastern Michigan's got the ball covering. They throw an interception. Wisconsin gets a late touchdown to get ahead of the spread by a half a point. At the end of the game, Eastern comes all the way down. They're at like the 16-yard line of Wisconsin. It's the last play of the game. Throws, end zone, receivers there, drops the ball. It would have been 34-14. Just a drop by the receiver. Meaningless drop at the end of the game, right? Unless you had Eastern Michigan plus 26.5 in a 27-point loss last week. So that was a little disappointing. Should have been another Eastern Michigan cover as an away dog. But when you take a look at this matchup this week, Eastern Michigan is great as an away dog, but they're not great as a favorite. And in fact, coming into this game, they're just 10-13 against the spread as a favorite. I was going to show you the video, which is probably the main reason I had this one up here, but even without the video, here's the reasons I like UMass. Now, let's take a look at UMass last year. This is a horrible team, right? They lost by an average of 40-3. They were outgained by 295 yards per game. They're just horrible. Well, not so much. UMass last year canceled football. They weren't even going to play. Then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks before they played Georgia Southern, they decide they're going to play football. So Walt Bell's got to get the guys together and get them ready to play the option of Georgia Southern, which is in mid-season form. Georgia Southern's already played 5 games. So you would expect a blowout. It was, but actually not horrible. 41-0. I was expecting even worse than that. Then they don't even know who their next opponent. The game is over. They don't even have another game scheduled. And who do they end up scheduling? Marshall, which was dominating teams at the time. They play them on the road and get dominated. Then who do they play? Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, I believe, was undefeated and just rolling through teams or had one loss. They only lost 24-2. And then they played Liberty on a Friday, and Liberty was blowing out everybody and blew them out. So they were not, they were bad last year. Yes, the stats are indicative, but they played a brutal schedule, 4 road games, didn't even know they were going to play football. Somehow they were herding cats last year, getting the players back in. Now they opened up against Pitt. I think Pitt's underrated. Pitt's got a chance of winning their division in the Atlantic Division this year, and they lost that game. But last week against Boston College, I know Djokovic went out in the first quarter, but they still played a decent game. They lost their quarterback, Tyler Little, but Brady Olson played well last week, threw for 214 yards, and they actually had their moments. If you go back, when you're watching this video, if you want, Todd will have the box score up by then. Click on the box score, go through it. It was actually a game in the fourth quarter. I think it was like a 7 or 14-point game. UMass was playing them fairly tough. So I think UMass is going to be an underrated team. And right now they're playing to an average game grade of 76.8, even though they've got all this red here. Eastern Michigan beat St. Francis, but only beat them by 20. It wasn't overly impressive. A game grade of 74. Last week against Wisconsin, they only had 3 first downs, and they were 80. So average game grade, UMass 76.8, Eastern Michigan 77.1. I think there's value on UMass right now. Get them now. Now, Coastal, they'll probably end up losing by 28-35, but they're going to be getting 28-35. They've got a tough schedule. They're going to get blown out in some games, but this is one of those games where UMass is at home. They played Boston College within 17 points last week. I think they can play Eastern Michigan closer than the 22 they're getting here, especially with the fact the average game grade is 77.1 to 76.8. A couple other things I want to point out to you if you're using Phil Steele Plus, and this is to make sure you're using it to its fullest. Let's take a look at a team like let's go Penn State. No, you know what? Let's use Oklahoma. Oklahoma's playing Nebraska. Todd, did you get that cover? All right, so anyway, Oklahoma's playing Nebraska. I told Todd to get me the picture of the cover from the 1971 game, which was irresistible force meets immovable object. We can almost take you back to 1971. We take you all the way back to 1976, with spreads on every game. So if you want to know a spread from the last 45 years, I imagine the majority of you haven't even been around 45 years, but we take you back to 1976. You could see the spreads on every single game. Now, you probably don't know this, maybe you do, but they didn't even have over-unders in 1992, 94. They started putting over-unders on some marquee games in 98, 99, and then all of a sudden they put them on every game in 2003. Well, we charted every game in 2003, so here's your over-unders on every single game. And then in 2004, we started charting halftimes on every game. This tells you what the score was at halftime on every game. So you get the halftime score, you get the over-under. It's all at your fingertips. You want to know any game in the past, it's all right here for the last 45 years. And down here tells you who the coach was of the team. Remember the John Blake era for Oklahoma? Sorry, Oklahoma fans didn't want to bring that up, but I did. I went there. Then Bob Stoops took over and everything was wonderful. Lincoln Riley's taken over. It's great again. You got all that going for you. Complete 45 years history. And down here, you got the statistical notebook back since 1988. It's all there for you. Who the coach was, what their record was, record in conference, stats on every single season. That's all at your fingertips. So I did want to show you that. Also here, we've got the draft history. This takes you all the way back to the very first draft. So we're talking about 1936 was the first draft. We've got it covered. Every draft pick, every round. As you see, there was 20 rounds in 1972. Jack Mildren, one of the best option quarterbacks of all time. He was in that 71 game. Drafted in the second round, the 20th pick that year. Didn't end up getting an NFL future, but at least he got picked in the second round. But here, 17th round of the draft, 8th pick, Larry Roach went to the Bears. This is at your fingertips on every single team as well. And then the other thing we give you is the last 20 years leaders. Right up here, you get who was the top quarterback each year. They've had a few Heisman winners in here, you might think. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts almost was there. I think Spencer Rattler's got a chance this year. Leading rushers, etc. This is all at your fingertips on every single team. And this goes all the way back. You've got green and red individual leaders, game leaders on every single game. You could click on 2013. There you go. Every single game, individual game, how the players did. And this is at your fingertips on every single team. So let's now go to see what's available on the FCS, and we're going to take a look at Florida A&M. Now, when you click on FCS, it's got alphabetical. If you want to go conference, you can. I think it's a lot easier to do alphabetical, especially where they're switching conferences. Here's Florida A&M. We're going to put them on the left, and they're taking on USF. We're going to put them on the right. Now, I'll tell you this. I was going to have more FCS games up here for you. We've had like 3 or 4 each week for you. But last week was stunning to me. You know, we watched the line on UTSA Lamar all week. And I told you on the thing that it opened at 20, dropped down to 12.5. It's been at 12.5 for 2 days. I did the tape on Friday, and UTSA is a 12.5 point favorite. And I said, I don't care what the spread goes to. I don't care if it's 20. I don't care if it goes more than that. I like UTSA over Lamar. And they won the game 54-0. But you know what the spread went to, guys? The spread went to 37.5. So Vegas is watching these tapes as well, and I'm worried about the lines jumping big. So I'm just going with 1 this week because I don't want Vegas bumping these totals all the way up. USF's a 21.5 point favorite here in this game, and USF is a team that is struggling. They're getting outgained. They've lost their games by 34 points per game. They're getting outgained by 319 yards per game. Meanwhile, Florida A&M is a team that is plus 49 yards per game. They're coming off a nice 34-7 win and a close loss in the opener. I like USF. Why is that? Okay, let's take a couple looks here now. First of all, if we take a look at how the teams do, once again, if you click on Florida A&M here, you will see that USF always wins their games against the FCS. They have 1 loss, McNeese State. But other than that, they have won their last 7 games against the FCS, and by an average of 26 points per game. Last year, they beat the Citadel by 21. 2 years ago, they beat South Carolina State 55-16. So they usually win and win big. So they got that going for them. And here, when you take a look, now down here, Florida A&M, we only have these for we pull this over from the UCF log. So if it's green, that means the FBS team won. If it's green, that means the FBS team covered. So Florida A&M has only covered this one. They were plus 47 and they lost by 42. And this one, they were plus 46.5 and they lost by 34. They usually get blown out in these games. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2-8 against the spread when they step up and play this level. Now, I mentioned to you the stats. The stats are ridiculously in favor of Florida A&M here. But here's the thing. The average game grades takes into account the opponent played. Losing to Jackson State by 1 and beating a Division II team in Fort Valley State, that earns them a 45.3 average game grade. Number 104 in the FCS. That's not very good. USF lost to NC State. NC State is very talented, one of the most talented teams in the ACC. And they lost to 22, but to Florida, for crying out loud. And Florida has a lot of talent this year. They actually played to a 78 and 82.6 game grade. So the average game grade says USF 80 to 45. That's a 35-point difference. Factor in the home field, that's 3 points. They should be a 38-point favorite here. Now, Cade Fortin struggled in the opener against NC State, 7-20, got pulled. Timmy McClain came in. Fortin was better last week. I think this could be Fortin's game to take control of the offense. And Cade Fortin's a North Carolina transfer. Also, like, Felix just took on NC State and Florida's defense. He's going to love Felix and Mangum and Batty. They're going to love running against this defense, an FCS defense. And yeah, they're playing well. They've only allowed 268 yards per game, but they really haven't played anybody. In fact, let's go back and take a look at Jackson State, this team that beat them, see how good they are. And I have not looked to see how good Jackson State is. They did beat Tennessee State 38-16, so that's good. They lost their last 3 games last year. They had opened 3-0, and prior to that, Jackson State was a 4-8 clean team. Had a losing record here. Had a losing record here. The red, of course, means they lost the game, and you could tell at a glance. You don't have to look at each score and see who won. The red lets you know that they won or lost the game. I think that's invaluable. So as you could tell, greater competition. I like the talent level USF has, and they need wins. They got at BYU, SMU, Tulsa, Temple. There's not a lot of wins on these schedule. You can't go winless this year, can you? They got their FCS win last year and covered against the Citadel, I'll point out. And the Citadel is a tougher option team to face than this is with Florida A&M. So I'm going to take USF minus 21.5. Keep in mind, we have game grades on all FCS teams. And here's the other thing. You want to know about Florida A&M, you want to know about any team. Let's take a look just randomly here. Take a look at Portland State. Let's see how Portland State is. Here's a complete forecast for Portland State. How's their offense? How's their defense? What have they done in the past? It's all up there right now. That's not just on Portland State. That's on every single FCS team as a complete write-up. It's like getting an FCS magazine. Plus, you get updated power ratings. Plus, you get updated stats. Plus, you get individual leaders all season long. Take a look at a team like Monmouth, which is really good. Here it is, a complete write-up on Monmouth. Top to bottom, tells you all about the team. And then here, you click on the individual player stats. We'll have the stats updated probably by the Saturday morning. You could see how each player does all season long. If you want to know how these teams did last year, we got the individual player stats for you, how they did in the spring. We got the individual player stats for you in 19. We got the individual player stats for you in 18. It's all covered. You become an instant FCS expert. And I'll be honest, I'm doing a radio show. Somebody calls up an FCS team. I just click on my Phil Steele Plus, and I'm an instant expert. I can tell you everything about the team, who their top quarterback is, who their top running back is, everything. So it's really worth it, especially if you're going to look at these FCS games. So the final official play is USF minus 21.5 over Florida A&M. So there we go. Took you through the whole tour for this week. Gave you 8 free plays. Hopefully it has another solid week. I'll be back next week with another tour and more free selections. Have yourself a great weekend.